Hello, Hi-Fi Tribe. Dominic Justina here, host and creator of Life on Hi-Fi podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Before we continue, remember to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe by hitting the bell so you know whenever a next episode drops. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Rita, and she has a really phenomenal story where she grew up with almost nothing in Rwanda for a portion of her life. We met at a modeling agency in Toronto, so imagine her leap from Rwanda to speaking English, first of all, in the city of Toronto, and doing as much as she has, which I'll get into in a bit. Now, if you really want to get into the mind of someone who will do whatever it takes to follow their dream, then this is the podcast for you. Now, do you agree that we should give up the status quo in order to follow our dreams? I have that question for you. Comment below to let me know what your thoughts are on the topic. And without further ado, let's dive in. What has your life on Hi-Fi?
My creator has my life on Hi-Fi.
You're listening to Life on Hi-Fi, the podcast. And I'm your host, Dominic Justina.
It really doesn't matter if I create a masterpiece or not. It doesn't matter who likes it. As long as I'm enjoying the process, that's all that matters.
Follow me as we talk about relationships, love, purpose, passion, you name it.
Focusing on what you have versus what you don't have can be a huge game changer.
A public expression of freedom is just, I don't know, like it was so liberating for me.
Do what you have to do.
Yeah.
Take some time off if you need to. But when all is said and done, you gotta keep moving forward.
Let's commit to living our best lives together, shall we?
So I have this thing where I have to feel like I'm high, like while sitting. It's like I don't like chairs that are all the way in. I have to feel, yeah.
You're meant to be on a throne type of thing.
Ooh, amen to that.
I want to officially welcome you to the Hi-Fi family.
Thank you so much for inviting me and for this opportunity to get to have a conversation with you. I'm so looking forward to learning a lot from you from this conversation, and it's incredible. I've been following your work. It's amazing what you're doing, and I wouldn't be more pleased and so proud to be part of it. So thank you so much, and happy Mother's Day to your mom. It's a beautiful day.
Thank you. And to your mom too. I'm really excited because I've been getting some good feedback from folks listening. And my takeaway is that young people are getting, motivation and inspiration from these conversations. And, just as listeners are learning, I'm learning, you're learning, we're all learning. So I'm excited to see where this rocket ship takes us essentially. So you have your own talk show called The Cyper Show. That's how we pronounce it, right?
Correct. Yeah, you said it right.
Okay. And you're competing in the Miss Face of Humanity Global Competition soon. You've previously been deemed Miss Queen of Emancipation Canada. In my eyes, you are a model and you're a speaker. I know you like to shy away from those titles. Because you're such a humble person, and you do have an amazing track record, but most importantly, you are a young woman in your early 20s, and just like myself, you have big dreams, so I definitely want to get into that. Okay, let's start from how we met. Do you remember? I like to ask my guests this all the time.
I think I do, yeah. We were having a photo shoot at this new modeling agency that was starting up. But I don't quite remember how we started our conversation, like how you and I got to start talking.
I don't either. To be honest, I remember you were sitting down while by the way, I'm by no means a model. This was like my first photo shoot, officially like in a studio, and my mom was there. And then I think you were sitting nearby her, close to her, and you were there with your friend.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know.
Oh my God.
I don't remember how.
My friend. I met her there too for the first time. I remember,
really?
I think I asked you about your mom. I was like, is she your sister? Like, no, she's my mom. And I'm like, oh my God, you guys are so young and beautiful. Like, I was just so thrilled about how you looked amazing. And she was helping fix your dress and everything. I was like, this is so beautiful. It was amazing.
Honestly, it was that love that I felt from you that I was just like, oh my gosh, you're beautiful too. And I feel like in the moment I just needed to get your IG, and then we took it from there. But yes, that is how we met. We met in Toronto at a upcoming modeling agency. So you were born in Rwanda, in a village in Rwanda. What was growing up there like? And how did you end up here in Toronto? And did you know what you wanted to be growing up?
Oh my God, those are so deep and beautiful questions that I gotta be careful where answering them, because it's a long journey, in the sense that I think it's Randall, you've had him on your show. He used to tell me so many times that we're old souls, and I never quite understood what that is as a person who doesn't believe in ghosts or being possessed. So I'm like, what do you mean we're old souls? He's like, yeah, we've been here before. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like the way you think and view life, you feel like you've lived so long and you've had so much of experience, but you're only like 20 years old or 22 years of age or something like that. So growing up in Rwanda, like in the village, was the most beautiful thing. Like I was raised by my grandparents. My mother left me when I was like months old. I never quite got to know her, so I was raised from my father's parents. They took me in. I never once questioned that they weren't my parents, except the little questions of, oh, they're too old to be my parents. Like, how she's too old yet, but she's still, like, I knew her as my mother, but people are like, no, she can't be your biological mother. You have to be a certain age for you to still give birth and all that. But nonetheless, she loved me more than I could ever imagine. I had my best friends who didn't have anything. They had to make like clothing from like their mother's part of their clothes, like little things like that. We shared almost nothing, yet we felt like we are fulfilled. At some point, like I had like one pair of shoes for all school. Like you needed one to go to school, and you needed one good outfit for Sunday church service. And I was so fulfilled that when I look at the things I have right now, when I look at the money that I spent on clothing, I'm like, why am I sad? Why am I frustrated that I don't have a new dress for the upcoming birthdays of my friend, when I used to have one outfit and I could wear it until it got torn or until I lost it somewhere? And I knew how to take care of it because that's what I had. And I was the happiest. So as I grew up, and like I had so many things that I now look back and appreciate more. And back to your question, if I ever thought I was ever going to come to Canada, honestly, not in the life of me or anyone who has ever known me in the past, before like 4 years ago, no one would ever say that Rita will ever go to Canada or speak English like I'm speaking right now. No. I knew one language up until I was like, up until 4 years ago or 5 years ago.
That is cool. That is so cool. Yeah. What's your first language?
Kinyarwanda.
Oh, okay. Can you say, I guess, can you say a sentence?
Uri mwiza cyane means you're so beautiful.
Oh, wow. Thank you. How do I say thank you in that language?
Murakoze.
Murakoze?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, you said it right. Yeah, murakoze. It's like a Z-E at the end.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Said it correctly.
So, okay, so you had, I kind of like similarly, not necessarily the same, but similarly, I grew up in Jamaica, and honestly, being on the island, things are a little bit more simple. Like I could wake up and, for instance, get tea from my backyard and just like cut the bush. My favorite was fever grass, and then put in a pot, boil it, make tea. As you were saying, like you were saying, you're happier. There's something to say about having a simpler life, and having what we prioritize. And I think we were talking about it, like being in the pandemic, everybody at the same time we're able to prioritize what's essential, right? And it just feels, I don't know, it feels like a lesson worth holding on to.
Absolutely.
But, yeah. And then, okay, so you grew up in the village, and you had less access to what you have now, but like, can you give me an idea of how you said you never imagined yourself here? what was your path like getting from Rita, the little girl who grew up in the village, to Rita, the young woman who's now here in the city?
I would say I'm so much of a believer that there is something that is meant to be and something that is already created for us to fulfill. So in a sense that the things around me, so my father's sisters and brothers, they were able to go to high school. Like my family was like the rich one that you could say within the community, because we had like big lands, we have more cows and all those things. Whereas the students that I went to school with, including my best friend, she got pregnant, which was like 16. So as soon as we finished the primary school, the first years of education, she got pregnant. And then her mother was also like a single mom who had that when she was like also as young, like 22. And then all other friends too, like the first things to finish your primary school, get married, and then if you're lucky enough, get a house, a few goats or cows, and then a cow is like the richest thing, but like a few goats and then you're cool. Like that's the limitation of life. That's the best thing you can ever accomplish, to get married right after school.
Wow.
So to say that I'm gonna go to school, have a career, and like choose, we thought like the people who are presidents or doctors, they live in the movies, they live in the films, they live in the newspapers. We didn't have TV or technology. It's gonna sound weird because it's like, who still has that in this generation? You'd think your parents are the ones who would say to scare you, but I lived in that, where we use petrol and the lights and candles to light up our house. It's like it's all those little things that kind of limited my dreams in a sense, because I was like, everybody around me is that, but my family had the opportunity or the liberty and the chance to have another window to life, another chance where my uncle was already a leader in the city, like in the capital city, and my aunt was going to go to her school in India. So like we had all these other things that would come to visit me and bring for me a new book with like a little football player at the back, and that was the best book. I would show it off to my school, and like all those little things, and they'll bring for me like the pencil that has rubber on the top, because we used to have to get donations from missionaries who would come, and they would give us like a rubber and the pencil. But in this case, my aunt would bring me the pencil with the rubber on the top, and I would go the whole school showing it off, like all those little things, you know. So like to come from that and to come here where I buy everything, like I'm the type of person who would really, I give a lot. I give more than people who call me stupid or foolish, because I've been to a point where I realized like I lived well. I had the happiest ever so when I didn't have any of the things that right now I'll be struggling to hold on to. So for instance, if someone asks me for money, I'll give them every penny that I have. If that money means like you're going to drop out of school, so I need school fees, I'm gonna give it to you, all of it. Because I'm like, I've lived without the money at some point. As long as I have shelter, as long as I have food, even if it's one bread, I've lived to the point where these things don't matter. It's like you learn to live with your hands open at all times. Things can be placed, things can be lost in a second.
Wow. That's incredible. I think that I talk about, being able to live and not being attached to the things we have, but I couldn't even like imagine being, growing up in a place that you just described with no, you're using candles with like, what else you were describing, like petroleum, that's what you were using to.
Yeah, and the big things, like we had this other new thing that came where they use batteries, and then you can connect little wires to it. I know how to do it even like right now. I want to make it just to show my friends at some point. And then you put little bulbs on the top, and you can make electricity around the house using the remote control, what do you call it? Batteries. And it's the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
What was it? Okay, what was it? I guess also that's amazing. And the fact that you can bring that with you, like even though you're here, is such a great inspiration to draw from. Like, because you lived in a world that many of us have not seen or experienced. So that like no matter what, I can survive without
Yeah.
all of these things, which is pretty cool. And then it sounds like you had family who were expanding beyond the village, and then they would come back and influence you, right? And kind of
Mhm.
make you realize that there was more of the world to experience. So is that how I think you said so you went from there, and then where did you go afterwards? Did you go straight to Canada?
No, so my father had another family, like he was married, and at some point I knew him as my brother because I was raised by his parents, so they would take me. I call them my mom and my father. Um, and so when he would come with his family, because like his wife was like really light skinned, and all their kids were light skinned, and they spoke English and French, and they had shoes. There was the city kids. So when they would show
Okay.
up, I was like, oh, my brother's kids are here. I was their auntie and all that. But when I finished a primary school, my grandmother was like, no, you gotta take her to the city, because if she stays here, she's gonna be like everybody else. So my father was like, yeah, she suffered a lot. This is my moment for me to make it up to her and give her good school. He took me literally from 0 to like 100. Took me to the best school where the prime ministers children went to. The students who became the first in the country. I didn't know that was a thing, to win the country and become the first one in certain subjects. They went to that school. They all spoke English. I had no idea how to say good morning. So he took me from this 0 level and he put me in a private school, the first top, I think number 1 or 2nd school in the whole country. So it was a huge change.
Wow.
And then from there,
this is Rwanda, right? This was
yeah.
still in Rwanda. Okay.
And then like the first 3 years of that, I was horrible. I was the most terrible kid, rebellious, because I had just found out my brother was my father. I had just found out that my biological mom exists somewhere, although she left me, that she has a family somewhere. So I was like an angry kid. An angry kid.
Yeah.
And I was getting like suspensions within school. I was wanting, I think I even stole shoes at some point, some outfits, like all those little things. Like I became really terrible the first 3 years of my high school.
So now it's just clicking that you said your brother, who you thought was your brother, was actually your father.
Yeah.
How did you find out? Did he tell you, or did you have to do some digging on your own?
So there is, my grandparents had this person who helped them take care of the cattle, and they've had him for over 20 years. Like during the genocide, they migrated to a different country, and that's where they got him, and they raised him as their own son. But they gave him a few cows, and he took care of it as if it was part of the family. So he will tell me all those things behind the scenes. He will say, oh no, they're too old, their mom lives somewhere, or the family that comes to visit is your dad, he's not your brother. Like he gave me all the secrets. So I started writing poetry as letters to my mother. And then my father found out about the letters, and then he had to tell me the whole truth. And yeah, it was a whole event.
Wow. Okay, so the person that your grandparents took in was like on the side, like feeding you information so you could be guided to the truth, which I mean, I'm glad that you were guided to the truth, because it probably has a lot to do with who you are now.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I feel like there is a lot of parents don't tell us in the mask of protecting us, but they are causing more harm than if I lay all my cards on the table and let you decide of what to become.
Yeah. And so speaking about who you are now and what to become, who did you know who you wanted to be or what you wanted to do once you were exposed to that new world, essentially?
I think in the midst of getting lost, you also get to realize the privileges you've had along the way, and the things you don't like, you no longer like. So in order to become someone new, something new, or to trace a new path, you have to have something that you don't like. Like I, for one, I hate being poor. Not in the sense of I won't have so much money or big houses and all that. I hate being poor in the sense that I'm not able to provide for myself and the people that I care about. So I saw that and I was like, I have these privileges. I became a head girl, like a high school president at that school, right after getting lost and everything. I received awards. Like I saw the privilege of wanting to be someone and being influential and being better and thinking better too. And I was like, I wish my best friend can be here to do the same, because she was more intelligent than I was. She did all my homeworks. And I wish my classmates could be here because they had dreams and they cared and they had compassion. Then you get to see this friend of yours in high school has all the privileges, but they're not kind enough to give. They're only working hard to provide money for themselves. And I'm like, I wish my friends could be here. I wish I could be this uplifted with the people that have the same heart as I do. I want to give a chance to those people to know that the dreams exist. Because it's sad. It's sad when it's one thing to waste your dream, and it's another thing not to know that you have the freedom to have a dream.
Yeah, sorry, I just felt that so much, like a gut punch. I was having this conversation with a friend of mine, and basically it's like growing up in an environment and not having the most. So my parents come from very humble beginnings, and what they had to do was they didn't really have the support of their parents necessarily to propel them in the best circumstances. So they had to go seek that for themselves, like moving from the country, moving to the city, all of that. And sometimes I wonder, like, is it the environment that dictates, what that person has the potential to be, or is it the person themselves who has to connect with that potential and know that regardless of where they are, they're different, and then go seek it for themselves? And I think we landed on the fact that it's a balance. Like we have a system that, makes it seem like we have less options than we truly do. And then we also have our free will, right? The ability to say, like, I see what's going on around me. However, I feel like there's more. And because of that, I'm going to go on to this journey to go seek more, something that feels a little bit more abundant than what I'm in right now. Yeah.
Absolutely, 100% agree with that. Because there is that inner voice that tells you to be better. There is that inner voice that calls you to help or to compare around, like compassion. And then there is that like balance of what the society says and what has been deemed possible, and that puts you like right under the rock if you're not strong enough, if you are not resilient to keep bumping your head into the walls everywhere, because you find all the doors are closed. There is a limited rooftop above you, and it's like you gotta pave your own way. So I think that's where the balance comes in, and the losing of stability comes in, and it's a war, it's a battle.
Yeah, it is a war, it is a battle. And like, but at the end of the day, it's like, oh, okay, let's pave our own way. And I mean, I want to bring it back to even why Life on Hifi was created, because I think that, we're all kind of on this journey, right? And we can decide that we want to become like an even better version of who we are right now today. And that's my journey towards self-mastery. That's your journey towards self-mastery. And if we could hold these conversations and, propel each other and encourage each other on those journeys together, like, to me, that's so ideal, because we forget, like, if we close our eyes and like tune into what the system and the society is telling us, we often forget that we have the capacity to do more, and to
Absolutely.
do more than what's prescribed or recommended or molded for all of us. So if I want to ask you a question, and I don't mean for it to be a tough question, but I understand that it could be.
It's okay.
Go ahead. Okay. If there is one imprint that you'd like to leave on the world in this lifetime before you go, what is that? What would that imprint be? Or I guess that message?
Explain a little bit more.
So, okay, I know you're really young. And so this answer might change depending on the time, if it's years from now. But given that the person you are now and what you've experienced, if there is one thing, one lesson, one impact that you'd like to have on people, or you'd like to if there's one lesson that you'd like to help to share with people, what would that thing be?
I think I am still rooted into the concept of ubuntu, which is to mean I am because you are, or I am because we are.
So could you repeat that word again?
It's called ubuntu.
Okay.
It's like I think they originated from South Africa. Like it's related to Ubuntu, which means humanity. And then the word in itself, I think Mandela is the one who was more into that so much. It's like I am because we are.
I am because we are. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So if I was able, like, I want people to remember me by she dared to, and she did not live for herself. I try to do that because at any moment I live for me. And I feel like the best moments that I feel more fulfilled and more proud of are the moments I've lived for others. The moments that I have crossed or pushed my path to cross with someone else's, not my own lane, not just me. Because then I don't feel appreciated enough. I'm more of a person who gets appreciated from the heart. If I am able to see someone like smile, I don't cry when I'm sad. Like I only cry when I'm happy. And like from the littlest of things, someone says, "Oh my God, hi Rita, how are you today?" I can literally shed tears on that. So like that's my Thanksgiving, and like the only thing I would love is if people get to say she dared and she lived for others.
I think you are one of the most beautiful and rarest souls I've met. You just have so much compassion and love for others. And I do want to say congratulations. I know recently you raised $20,000 through your organization. Can you share more about the cause and the organization around that fundraising?
Thank you so much. Well, it was when the pandemic started, and once again, it freaks back to how I was raised in my own life journey, realizing that we're ordering so many things on Amazon, like packaging and like buying so many things to put in case we're not allowed to go outside to buy essentials. And I remembered back home, we don't have any of these technologies. So we don't have deliveries. We don't have, some of us don't even have, like, they don't have telephones to order anything or even internet. So I'm like, these people live day by day. If you're able to go work for someone else, then you go home with enough money to afford food for that day. There's no such a thing as savings. There is no such a thing as a monthly pay rate. No, it's day by day. So how are these people going to survive while the whole world, the Western world, is surviving off savings or of government help, of everything that was helping? So it's from there, under my organization called United for Humanity, I reached out to all other artists, like poets, singers, and as well as other organizations. And we came together, we did an event showcase, and people were able to donate money, and we're able to raise $20,000, which is like millions back home. And yeah, people were able to eat for a few more days while they figure out how to survive for the rest.
That is amazing. So you mentioned your organization's United for Humanity, right?
Correct.
And I'm interested in knowing how you prepared yourself for managing an organization like this. Do you have a business background, or do you have previous experience in managing in the nonprofit space?
Honestly, no, I have no idea. There is this one friend who has a huge organization. He's like 45 years of age, and he hates me. He hates my guts in the sense that he wants to help me. Like literally, he wants to help me. He wants to nurture me. He wants to like me, my mentor, because he has all these experiences. And for the past 5 years, he was able to create his own organization. And I am 23. I've done so much. I've done so many fundraising events. I have collaborated with community centers in Toronto. I've worked with shelters, like all these things, but in grassroots. So he's like, Rita, you gotta put a name on this. You gotta create leadership, or you gotta create a board members. You gotta apply for these grants. But then there's all this paperwork, and I have no idea, because then he needs for you to plan.
That
and
sounds overwhelming.
It's like, yeah, you need to do all these paperwork, and like I'm a free thinker in the sense that what I want to do today might not be the thing that I want to do tomorrow morning. I cannot plan in the next 5 days. I have no idea what I want to do in the next 5 days. Like, I don't do the to-do list. So to tell me to lead an organization that is going to require me to write the upcoming events at least in 2 months ahead, that's not possible. That's like killing a dream. So we reached to a point where I was like, do you want me to keep doing what I'm doing or give up my dreams in order to have it on paper? And he's like, you know what? I give up on you. Do you? I will be behind you picking up the slacks. And if it's applying for grants, I applied in 2 days or 1 week of the event. And I get so many no's because of the way I act. But it is the hardest thing that I am going through right now. I feel like I'm shedding off some skin.
Is he working with you like on a team to help guide you with organizing and doing the paperwork?
No, he had to quit.
Oh my God.
He's like, I'm going to be helping on the side, but because the team members that I have or the board members, he wants it to be like someone who is more educated, more qualified, people that you need to pay in order to take on a job because they know how to write application letters for grant writings, like people who can take your idea to the MPs for it to be chosen for something, ABCD. Whereas for me, I want the people that I want on board members are my friends. People who I'm going to call 5 in the morning and be like, I want us to host a charity event tomorrow morning because there has been a pandemic or there has been a hurricane in this country and we need to help them. Those are the kind of people that I want on my board members, people who motivate me. Like I want to create a space that I'm still able to think and dream and still be me. And people who won't tell me, but no, people will be like, okay, that's your idea, that's your dream. Let's do it. Let's see what we can do. Those are the people I want. I don't want someone that you can pay. There are things you can't afford with money.
Yeah, it's a push and pull. I get what you're saying, but then I also get what your mentor is saying. Because in order to like scale up and achieve the dream, it's like you do need the people who are more tapped into less of the visionary stuff, but more into the like day by day, task by task stuff that you don't want to focus on. So I get it. It's tough. It's a tough one.
No, I moved. My personal hero now is Mother Teresa. So she gave up everything and went to the village to serve the poor and became poor as them. I'm like, if that's what it means for me to still exist in a society that tells me you have to have mission statements, you have to narrow down your dreams. Because I'm like, he's like, oh, so your organization, does it focus on women? Does it focus on children? I'm like, I care more about humanity. Just because I want to focus on women, I don't want a man to come to my doorsteps and I'm going to say no. The whole reason why I created this organization was because I came here as an immigrant. I would go to one office, they would tell me, oh, sorry, we don't focus on housing. We only care about the food. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, but I'm homeless. What happens if you give me food and then I'm going to be killed on the street or I'm going to die because I'm cold? Like, can you at least direct me where I can get this information? They're like, no, go check, and there must be another organization that focuses on that. I'm like, if there was one center where they have, like, it's like the United Nations, where they can lead you, direct you to all these channels where you can get ABCD and still be a whole. So that's what I wanted to create, than just to be narrowed and be boxed in with one center. Yeah.
You've lived too deep within it to feel like there's this one solution. Like, I understand why that would seem like a band-aid solution to you or inefficient, because you've been there and you know what you would have needed and you know what your best friend would have needed and your family in the village would have needed. So you're so close to the thing that you're solving that it's tough to rein it in and to hear no's or to hear people who have no idea what it feels like. It seems limiting, right? Like, from your perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is limiting. Also, like, I had the idea of this is how things are done. I'm so rebellious in a sense that, like, there are types of people that I cannot sit with for a second. I'm a good listener, but I love debating. Like, I'm a Libra, so that's like one of the personality traits. I play like a devil's advocate, and some people like really get mad because, like, we know you agree with this, but why are you disagreeing?
Why are you debating?
Because I want to know what you think.
That sounds like a Virgo trait. I didn't know that Libras were known for that too.
Oh my God, we do. And it's annoying sometimes because you know 100% for sure this person does not believe in people being killed, yet they're defending like a genocide just for the sake of understanding how people get to think. So when someone tells me this is how things are done, this is how you're supposed to do things, I'm like, you are part of a society that contributes to this. Your vote counts just as much as the other 99. So you tell me this is how things are done. It's like you telling me there's nothing I can do to make a change or to leave like to leave my name somewhere on this wall. It's like your existence doesn't matter. Because there is this one lady who I told to help me apply for some papers. I think it was documents or work permit. And she's like, you don't have ABCD, so you're not gonna be qualified. And then I'm like, who says that I'm qualified or not? She's like, oh, the people above me. But I'm like, but you're here, you're a vessel for them. You voice for them as much as you can voice for me. So take to them and say, these are my reasons why I feel like I deserve it. And then she's like, oh, but then they will say this. I'm like, so are you saying you're useless in this era? Like you being an advocate or a middle person is useless? And then she's like, wow, you just disrespected me, called me useless. I'm like, no, because you're saying you're here as a vessel, you're here to tell me what they think should be done. Which is like what happens with the governments too, when they tell you this is how the government says these are the new rules, and they say it as if they are messengers of someone else instead of taking responsibility and feeling like they're part of that community or that republic or that society that contribute to these rules and the regulations.
Can I tell you, I think that goes hand in hand with what I was saying before, where we are individual vessels, right? We have free will. However, there is the system, and the system has found a way to seep and build. Actually, so my friend mentioned that we are the most, let me see if I can remember exactly how he said it. I can't remember exactly how he said it.
So say it in your own words, it's okay.
But basically we were talking, and so it's actually my partner, and he was saying that we are the most controlled set of people. Like the system has found a way to just get better and better each decade to control us, right? And it eventually becomes infectious. It eventually spreads so much where it doesn't feel like we can do otherwise. Like it feels like we just have to go along with it. Like that's the way things are done. But here you are, not, growing up, you weren't plugged into that system. So you haven't been molded by it as long as a lot of people have, right? Generation over generation, you don't have impact on that. So it sounds like you're just like, this is ridiculous. Like you're waking up to this thing that everyone's trying to, I don't want to say worship because I don't want to use a religious word, but everyone is adhering to. And you're just like, are you
are you down? Like is it okay to say that word? Like being engaged in leadership roles at school, or even seeing my grandfather, how he was able to influence some of the decisions that were made in the society. Yeah. I get to realize that he had the saying. Some days he would wake up and be like, you know what? I don't like the way people walk through my crops, like where I planted my plants, because they steal it. And he would go ahead and pass that law into the community, and everyone would say, you know what? This road is closed. And that was because of his personal reasons, his personal opinion. So you get to realize just how much an idea can influence people and how much you are part of that train of people. Because if you're saying, 10 people are going this direction, and you don't realize you're part of those 10 people, you know what I mean? And if you stand alone, someone will say, but one person standing over there, they'll stand right behind you. It's like this belief that when they say God, and I'm like, whatever God you can choose to create a God, literally, and your children will worship that, because that's the only thing they know about. So that just shows you how much we have a canvas. We are living canvas.
We are. It's funny because my grandfather was someone who lived he grew up in the city, which I found out recently. However, when I knew him as the version he was when I was growing up, he was living on a mountain in St. Anne, which is a parish in Jamaica, kind of like a province essentially, or a state, but it's a parish in Jamaica. And he was in the rural, like, mountain tops, and that's where he lived. He chose to live in a shack that he built himself. Wow. right? And a very minimalist lifestyle. He made crafts and he was just this eccentric human being. And I grew up in the city, right? So I was completely not kind of locked away from that. Only when I moved to visit him sometimes would I be exposed to his way of life. And what he would do is he would point, so we're on a kind of like a cliff, and he would say, Danielle, because that's what my family calls me, and he would just like kind of show me the scene, and I would see all the treetops, and he would say, all of this is yours. Only to say, like, life is so expansive. It's so much more than you think it is, and it's all yours, and you have the freedom to do with it what you may. And I, as a little girl, didn't know that, because I was just like, yeah, grandpa's crazy, like, or he's but honestly, I always go back to that moment. And I remember my mantra now is, there is no cage big enough to hold you. And I realized that that mantra is just that feeling of wanting freedom and wanting to commit to the idea that there is so much more to life, and nothing really out there, system or not, can really cage this soul. Like, you said it to me as well, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And to me, that's something that is not a common thought process to have on a day-to-day in a city like Toronto in North America. Like, in that context, it's hard to hold on to it, but
everything is physical. Like, that's the saddest thing. It's like how I dress is how people are going to respect me, how well my hair looks like is what people are going to do. Sometimes I would choose not to care about my outfits, because I was like, oh, people will judge me because of this. Some people respect me because of how I'm dressed. But then at the end of the day, I'm like, no, I want my inside to portray outside. Like, if I am going to the supermarket, I want to dress like I'm going to see some legend. Like, literally, it's like the little things like that. But like, I feel like we care more about the physical more than anything. Like, body becomes after.
Yeah, we are definitely physical creatures now more than anything. But I think it's tough, Rita. Like, I fall into that trap as well. Like, I feel as if I have to adhere to the rules here in order to, if I want to get ahead, if I want to make progress, I have to adhere. I can't just,
be rebellious.
But
just you know what's funny
liberated.
Though? I feel like if you are content spiritually, no matter how crazy and how so out of the rules and so out of the society it sounds, you find yourself, you're contained and you are enlightenment. In a sense, your spirit comes fast. You act as though you are aware of the rules and regulations, because what your true spirit, your purity tells you to do are things that respect other human beings, are things that tell me to love. Whereas if I listen more to my body and my skin, it tells me to hate white people because they killed my ancestors. It tells me to hate my fellow Rwandans because they killed my grandparents or my aunties and uncles. So you find that just as much as if you are able to cleanse your spirituality, to know what you want from within, you are able to still be enlightenment with what the society proclaims or puts rules to be able to protect, if that makes sense. Like the 10 commandments of God, which is what the society still puts in place to don't kill, don't hate, don't rob, like things that make the society what it is. But if you act from within, you realize I wouldn't want someone to kill me or to kill my children. I wouldn't want someone to steal what I love the most. So you're still falling into place, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, that definitely, wow. Like that's
it's so a weird way. It's like you're blind, you're choosing to listen to your inner voice, but then at the same time you find you're not falling on any stones or any broken, shattered glasses at all. And it's like, wow, I thought I can only survive this if I used my eyes, but no. It starts all from within, I think. In any dreams and any goals, everything starts from me inside and then comes out.
Yeah, exactly. I strongly believe that as well. So when we are young, it's so easy to dream big, but as we get older, we are more aware of the system, and we often start to question and even worse, give up on the dreams that we had when you were young, right? And we thought things were more expansive. And I can personally say that when reality hit me in young adulthood, now all of a sudden there's bills and like insurance to pay for and managing my finances, Bitcoin, NFT, like all of these things happening that you feel like you have to stay on top of in order to be successful. It puts a lot of pressure on you to try and learn about the systems more, right? You recently, I love this, you slid into my DMs and you sent me this video with Nipsey Hussle, and he was speaking about something similar, but and I'll plug it in so that listeners can hear. But from your perspective, how do you think we can kind of safeguard ourselves from falling into that trap too deeply, where we start to give up on that part of ourselves, the dreamer part of ourselves?
I think you have to realize that everything outside, be it that job, be it that money, you accumulate it. It's because you created that opportunity for yourself. Whether you say I worked so hard to go get it, or I paid this much, or I invested this much of time or this much of money to get it, it's because you did it. Without you, that thing wouldn't have been happening. Without you, that education or that diploma wouldn't have been accumulated in any way. So if everything starts with you, then how much more would it happen or be impacted if it started with your dreams? So it's in a sense that if I dream to help people, then that's at the core value of everything I want to do. I'll go to school to learn, but I won't forget who I am and what I wanted to do in the first place. It's like this, I think it's a book I read, and they were saying that the world is dark, everything is black, no one is beautiful, no one is ugly. And then I was like, what do you mean by that? They're like, oh, there is no colors, there's no such a thing as colors. And then like, if you don't believe me, close your eyes. And then it's like, wow, all I see is darkness. So which means I am able to give life to everything outside of me. I'm able to give these colors.
That's interesting. So, okay, so the book was saying that the world is the same as our eyes closed, it's blank.
Yeah.
But I don't understand that, because if we are in one state where the world is dark, right? But we open our eyes and we're able to see, I don't know, if we're open our, help me understand that a little bit more.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Is it saying that the world as we know it when our eyes are open is truly the world, and it's more so when our eyes are closed?
No, it's more so when your eyes are open. So it's to say that it's like how they say, let me use like your child, because we don't have children, both of us. Like, and I'll say your child is really ugly. And then you look at your child, is like the most beautiful child, the most beautiful creature you've ever seen, because they're children. But it's all perspective. I'm like, he or she has a really weird eyes, or like lazy eyes, like things that people call ugly. But it's all because of my perspective. But if I close my eyes, it's plainly the only thought I have, the only imagination I have is there is a human being. I have no idea how tall they are, the tone of their skin, the texture of their hair, the softness of their body, or anything like that. Or if they have pimples or dimples or anything. Like, I have no idea of that. So everything starts from a perspective. So if I am a dreamer and I approach everything in life from a footstep, from a footprint of a dreamer, then everything becomes what I intended it to be.
Okay, so that is like, that's you talking about living with intention and like knowing the intention behind what you want before going out and doing it. That way, everything that happens connects. It feeds into your dream, essentially.
100%, yeah.
That's awesome.
I couldn't have said it anymore. I mean, any better, sorry. Yeah.
So, okay. So I remember when we were talking about the other day, like what we do to protect our vision. You said the first thing you do is you write things down, which I 100% agree with. Like before I did this podcast, I wrote a whole lot of things down. Like, why am I even doing this in the first place? I have no business. I'm not qualified to be doing any of this, but what drives me is my why.
I love that. I love that so much. I'm not qualified to do this. I love that so much. Like you have no idea. You know, when you said like I kind of like knocked you, there's this thing where I say like a literal term that I feel like you slapped my brain, like literally went into my brain and touched it. And that's how I feel with that. Like I'm not qualified to do this. Hence, you are doing it.
I slapped your brain.
Yeah, literally. Like
wow. So what are some other things that you do when you have these dreams of like, okay, I want to raise $20,000 for the people back home, or I want to start you right now with the Cypher show, your TV show, right? How walk me through what you do when you feel like a vision coming on, or a part of a feature of your dream coming to pass. You write it down, and then what do you do to make sure that you can hold on to it?
So what happens is even like the $20,000, I didn't say this is how much I'm going to raise. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put together a collective group of artists from all over the world, since it's all on social media. I reached out to like really incredible, like the verified poets from Instagram, and they showed up. They replied to me. Some are in Paris. People that I adored from Sofa Sounds on YouTube, which is like a great deal of open mics. And like they reached out to me. They're like, yeah, we're willing to help. And now like, okay, when people come in, they can pay like whatever, however much they want. So even my goal, when I dream of it, I'm like, I'm going to do my responsibility. I'm going to pull my dream into the reality, into the world, but I have no expectations of what it's going to make, because expectations limits it. If I want to create this vision, I'm not saying I want to be like Oprah, like my TV show. I want to be like Ellen show. I want it to be, I know a few things, like I want it to be on a billboard for advertisement, like little things like that. But do I want to say in this country, in that country, or do I want to say the number of subscribers that I want? No, because I'm like, I could say 100 and God wants me to have 2,000. I could say I want 1,500 and God wants me to have 1,000,000. So it's like, if I can do what I feel I'm supposed to do, then there is limitless, endless of opportunities and privileges I'll be able to prosper. It's like planting seeds. You don't know how many tomatoes are gonna come on that one seed that you planted, but you're believing this seed will have seeds that will come after it, which is the most beautiful thing. If you do your part, wow, there is no limit to what you're going to be able to how do you call it? Like what do you call it? I'm referring the word. Like it's like sowing. There is planting and
you're sowing. Yeah.
Yeah. There is no limit to that.
Wow. Okay. I think that's such an interesting thought in this day and age, because when people talk about goal setting, or and I don't think the word is envisioning, but when you're trying to picture a goal or something that you want, they always say be as specific as possible. I've had mentors who are just like, be specific, aim for, put a number on it. Even
idea, right?
Yeah. Or even like, I also work in the corporate world right now. So I do my creative work, but I work in corporate as a product manager. And basically, we have so many metrics that we're trying to go for, and it's like we're reaching high, we're going for these metrics, but like what I'm hearing you saying, and I get that as well. So I get, wanting to have those goals, and in a context where things are a little bit more regulated, it makes sense, like corporate. But what I'm hearing you saying is like, listen, if I'm saying I'm aiming for 1,000 subscribers and the universe wants to give me 4,000 instead, then why would I limit myself? Why am I capping myself? Why don't I just aim?
Because you're setting realistic goals, you're setting the things that your visual eyes are able to tell you and show you that are possible. So in reality, you're doing something that everybody else has ever done. It's it's like a formula. I'm like, so where is the room for me to still be me and for me to pave my own path that has never been created before? If all I'm doing is setting realistic goals. You know what I mean? Like you have this idea that came from nowhere and you want to give it roots and a source of existence and things to make it stable, but you don't, like, it's a dream. It's an idea. An idea is a non-tangible. It's nothing physical. It doesn't have a formula. It doesn't have components. So let it be that even when it comes to the real world. I feel like that's how dreams die. Because when you speak, it's like you feel your breath coming out and you want to give it a shape as well. Like, no, it came out as breath, let it be breath. Why do people use a painting and they're like, oh, describe your painting in words? No, I use a painting because there's no words that could describe this painting. So let it be that, let it be what it is.
Yeah. Wow.
We could do that on water, change water into ice, yes, but you also want to paint it to make it a human being into a human being form, but you also want it to breathe and not melt when it's under the sun. It's gonna melt because it's not what it's meant for. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's what happens to our dreams. We limit it by trying to make it into what the world already is, when it's something that is constantly being formed and being created.
So when it comes to a dream, making it measurable, what you're saying, can work against us sometimes, because we have no idea how big it can expand if we allow it to kind of, flourish into something of its own. It can take us into directions that we wouldn't have anticipated.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's like once, like 5 years ago, let's say like 10 years ago, I wouldn't have said that I'm going to be passing through Kensington Market in order to get to Bloor Street or Bloor and Young. But like people created that route. So if I'm thinking of an idea and the only route I can think of is that which has been already paved, then it's most likely I'm going to end up where everybody else ended up. And that's the end of my destination. But I want to be far. I want to know what Rita could be and can be if she was lost somewhere and she had to find on her own ways. And that's what I'm after.
I'm probably going to be reaching out to you whenever I feel, because I have that push and pull where I'm just like, I want to be this free agent, this free spirit, but then I also feel like, oh my gosh, like there's so much I feel like I have to be part of the system and know the system in order to, make moves and make strides. So whenever I feel demotivated, I feel like I know who to listen to and call for when I want that inspiration.
And the funny thing is, like, you're not the only one. I too, like, I have those moments because I have all these dreams, but of course I need the money to bring them to life. Of course I need to afford these things. Of course I need to pay the artists who contribute their time to this. I would feel good if I was able to at least pay for their transportation to come to my shows. I would feel good if I was able to afford the theatre that I wanted to do to host the next event at. Like all those little things, and then I beat myself down. I'm like, Rita, you need to learn how to do this. You need to learn how to do that. But then at the end of the day, it's like, Rita, you've done A, B, C, D in the past. Also, looking at your past testimonies can take you far. It's like there are things you didn't believe or think they were ever going to happen, and yet they happened. So when you feel like you're hitting the rock bottom and you feel like this is it, I need to accumulate and step into what the society expects me to be, for me to flourish and for me to be able to grow to be the human being that I want to be. You also need to flash back and know that my journey, what is it that happened to me? What are the days that I thought I was going to die that were the last days of my life? What are the days that I thought I was going to drop out of school because I didn't have school fees? What are the days that I wanted to become something and there were these 100 of limitations? What are the days I felt like I was going to be deported, and I am still here and I am as successful as any person in this country? You remind yourself those days that you rose up when it was the end of it, and then it's like, wow, I can surely trust whoever is in control, whatever is in control, that I can surely see tomorrow as bright as I did today.
Preach, girl. Like, you are speaking to the dreamer in me, and the dreamer in me is the part of me that makes me want to live a life that's fulfilling, and that makes me want to not settle for only the things that I can see. And so I think it's really important to have those conversations and to think about, with not just with other people, but also with yourself, because you have to know what the dreamer in you wants, and you have to kind of understand what your whys and what your reason for doing things is, in order to kind of, because as much as we want things to come, sometimes we have to make them happen. As you were saying, we have to create those opportunities ourselves. And I want to ask you this. So we were talking about confidence in going after what we want, right? And recently you said something that really stuck in my mind. And you said something like, you compressing your ideas might come in the way of giving someone an opportunity. So for context and just like for folks listening, going after what you want, having big dreams can sometimes be very scary if you feel like, who are you to deserve something so grandiose? Or if the world is telling you that you're being unrealistic and you need to just do what everybody else is doing. Exactly what we've been talking about. So you said that you draw your confidence from knowing that, you know, you're potentially helping other people with your dream, which is interesting because your dream is something that starts with you, but you're saying what motivates you is not you, right? It's other people. So understanding it has, sometimes these dreams have nothing to do with you. It's a purpose that you're meant to carry out. It's a
Oh my
purpose
God,
that
yeah.
will expand beyond you and help others around you. And for me, actually, I'm way more motivated as well, knowing that it's not just something that, like, you know, when you get in your own head, oh, I'm shy, oh, I'm insecure about this, my face, my lips, my hair, blah, blah, blah. And when you start to think beyond that, like, hey, this is going to give somebody else something that they've been wanting for so long, ultimately those things that you had in your head seem so much smaller.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I had to bring that up because when you said it, you were like, honestly, if you think about it this way, you know, you compressing your idea might come in the way of giving someone else an opportunity. I was like, okay.
Yeah, like literally, you imagine knowing that people could have been saved and you were doomed. Like, I don't know if you believe, or people who are listening to us believe in God, but imagine if Jesus was like, why am I gonna die? But he didn't realize he was saving the whole universe just by him dying. Or even in literal time of today, when Martin Luther King went on and started a whole movement, he got killed. And that was like, for him, if he was selfish and chose to say, you know what, I want to have a better now, I'm gonna have my life and I'm going to protect it by any means, and just like protect my little head and do the things that concern me, like make sure I provide for my family and my kids, and that's it. He wouldn't have known that he liberated thousands of Negroes all over the world. People who tend to say, I have a dream. I feel like every time someone says I have a dream, the name I hear is Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like that's what comes to mind. So I'm like, imagine you enjoying that little time of freedom, which our king is the one who said it. He's like, instead of dying for nothing, die for something, because we're gonna die anyways. And I'm like, ooh, wow. So it's like, I'm going to die, that's the end of everybody's journey. But if I die for something, I'm going to live past this moment of my physical body. Someone will remember me. So if I
what's your
protect
legacy? Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna say, it's like, what's your legacy? What are you hoping to leave behind? And how will you, we all have this limited time span. We think life is this thing that will go on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. In the way, in our physical form, no, it won't. We all have an end.
God, yeah.
Like, how do we make the most of life while we're here?
Think of it as your monthly plan bill of your phone. I used to do this thing where I would save my data, so turn off my data when I'm on Wi-Fi, and then when I'm outside, I'll bring my data back on. But every time, no matter if I used 50% of the data or 100% of the data, every month it gets cut off. So I'm like, even if I use it all, even if I save some, I won't be able to use it past the month, past the time that has already been created for it to be used for. So that's like how I view my life as. It's like, if I choose to live day by day protecting me, I'm going to expire. Nobody will know that I even existed. But if I can leave little sparks there and there, make that my road, my journey messy as it can be. Even when I make people angry, I'm like, oh my God, so I impacted you. I touched you in a certain way. Because you got to feel something. And if I get opposed, I'm like, wow, so I said something you're not used to. So I said something that you don't agree with. I'm saying something that is new to you. I feel thrilled in making people angry, happy, any sort of emotion, any sort of reaction. It makes me feel like I am felt. I am seen. I have been heard. Today, I'm not just only written in my journal, but I'm in someone else's journal as well. And that's what I intend to do. And that's what I hope my children to do at the same.
Oh my gosh, so beautiful. Such a beautiful way of thinking about living our lives and living for more than just ourselves. I mean, now I understand. So you are selected to compete in the Miss Face of Humanity global competition. Are you prepared? Are you like in the midst of preparing? Are you feeling ready? Are you feeling nervous?
Honestly, like I said, I don't know how to plan things. I don't know how I feel about it tomorrow. But as the moment I feel it's the right thing to do, I feel good about it, like really, really good. Because not only I'm going to meet like 100 of other women and coming from all over the world. There is like one of the girls was like in top 5 Miss Universe, like in South Africa, and she's flying in. Like there's all these little things that I'm going to be able to experience. And there is the part where they ask for the money. So it's like we need 3,000 for us to move forward. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna pay for that. That's part of it. So I'm like, do I put in all the work and when that moment comes and just drop out? But I'm like, no. You went in for fun. You won the first interviews, like the first project, like telling them your project so they can allow you to participate or to compete. I won those, like all those things. I'm like, I'm gonna trust the process, and whatever happens, happens.
Well, you've gone this far. Can you tell us more about the competition and how people can support?
The competition is Miss Face of Humanity Globe. Yeah, Miss Face of Humanity Globe. So they chose like hundreds of women from all over the world. I think in Canada or other countries, they chose like women to represent states, because it's a huge country.
Or provinces in Canada, right?
Provinces, yeah, thank you. And then you get to present a project. So it's not a beauty pageant. Beauty is like a compliment or icing on the cake. It's not the main part. Someone who's looking to do her part and play her role in bettering and uniting people and spreading love. And so how people can support is follow our social media, because they're looking for someone who is more engaged within the audience, someone who they think people feel comfortable. If it's comments on the photographs, it shows that you're reachable or you're approachable, and that's a huge part. And follow the journey, subscribe to our YouTube channels. I have my YouTube channel, The Cypher Show, and follow our Instagram, comment, share, like bring on any ideas, just brainstorm and help each other to better ourselves.
Awesome. And can you vocalize your Instagram handle for folks who are listening? I'll just drop it in the comments in YouTube.
Okay, amazing. It's The Cypher Show. So they as in THE, and then Cypher, CYPER, show as in SHOW.
Okay, that's perfect. And I'm going to ask you now one of my favorite questions. But before I even move on, I just want to say I'm wishing you all the best with that journey. I know that you're going to be, regardless of what happens, the person that will make the most of it. And so you have my full support.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
And putting yourself out there is something that isn't easy all the time. It takes a certain degree of confidence and trust in who you are. So I also want to say that, I'm looking up and I'm inspired by that as well.
Thank you. I'm humbled. Thank you so much.
Of course. So back to my favorite question of all. I like to ask every guest this. It's incorporated in the name of the show. And that is, what has your life on Hifi?
My creator has my life on Hifi. He has taken so much time into creating me as a human being that I am, and giving me this spiritual, I believe I'm a vessel. I am able to give life to so many ideas and so many things and touch lives in this life that I have. So I think my creator will be the one who has my life on Hifi.
Hi, we are at the end of the episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, remember to give this video a thumbs up and comment below your thoughts. Do you think we should give up the status quo in order to pursue a dream, or is that naive? Let me know what you think in the comments.